Welcome back to the Rebuilt Parish Podcast. At the time you're hearing this, we are only days away from the 2025 Rebuilt Conference. And so we've brought a special guest for you. We've got Kristin, who is one of our MCs for the conference. She is sharing a wealth of knowledge along with her top 5 tips for the conference. So you're going to want to make sure to dive in and listen to them. We'll see you inside the episode. Well, hi there, Kristin. Thank you so much for joining us on the Rebuilt Parish Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, Kristin, as we kick it off, I would love for everyone to get to know you a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course. I am a lifelong member of Nativity. I started coming to Nativity when I was 6 years old. I started in ministry when I was 8 years old. I started working as summer staff when I was in middle and high school. And then when I graduated college. And when I graduated college, I was on staff full time for about 8 years.
Oh my gosh, that is so much Nativity experience, so much Rebuilt experience. I'm just excited that everybody gets to learn from you today because that is incredible.
It's been really fun. It's really a blessing to see the evolution of something and to see things that we talked about and that were dreamed about over a decade, 2 decades ago, and seeing how that is coming to fruition is really amazing. And it's a really big gift to be able to see what God has done in that time.
Oh my gosh. And especially, I love that you said that, just especially thinking about our theme is, can you imagine? And so you're talking about things that you and the team dreamt about 20 years ago, and now they are coming into fruition.
Absolutely. It's ridiculous in the sense of how cool your vision can be when it comes to life.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Now, you've been a key part of planning earlier Rebuilt conferences. And this year, you're going to be the MC at the event. So everyone coming is going to get to see your face and hear your voice all conference long. Could you share? I'm excited for that. Can you share a bit about what you love about the Rebuilt conferences and what are some standout moments or lessons you've experienced?
Of course, there are a lot of challenges to working in parish work, in ministry work. There's a ton of blessings, but some of the things that are challenging is finding like-minded people outside the staff or immediate people that you work with. I think that my friends and, extended family and people that I know and love could understand to a point what you do and why you do it and your purpose and why are you working on the weekend every weekend, things like that, all the sacrifice you make and things like that. But it's really something spectacular when people who are doing the same work you are in a different part of the country or the state or the world come together and celebrate what you're doing, celebrate what God is doing in your church, and celebrate the energy and enthusiasm and the vision that you have moving forward. There's something that is very comforting, but also just very encouraging about that and makes you hopefully more on fire for your mission after than before.
Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. From working in parish ministry, your family doesn't understand. Some of your friends, again, can understand to a point, but you're absolutely right. They don't get everything that's going into your role. But there's something so special about being around those like-minded people. And we have hundreds and hundreds of like-minded people coming to this conference, and they're going to get the chance to spend some time with them, which I think that's one of the coolest things that we do.
It is really awesome, especially because brainstorming is something that I love and it comes easily to me, but that is not true for a lot of people. And so sometimes it's even hard to imagine what could be because you see your limitations, you see the obstacles, you see the way your space looks, you see the money you don't have. Right. And sometimes just being in a different space with people who can say, hey, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we didn't have that either. And we were going to conferences and saying, wow, wouldn't it be amazing? So take us as a testimony as to what God has done, and take that back with you. And it can really invigorate you and it can help you to dream bigger than maybe you had before. Sometimes we're just limited by our own circumstances and we just don't feel like we can dream big because it's something that is not possible or not doable in our eyes. But, God's just so much bigger than that. So it's awesome to see when people in parishes and when parish leaders start to make those connections and have those aha moments of like, well, okay, it's not going to look exactly like this, but this helps me see what it could be, which is pretty awesome.
Definitely. Now, from your perspective, you've done these conferences for a long time. So, what makes the Rebuilt Conference such a unique and impactful experience for our conference attendees?
When I went to conferences at the a very long time ago at Nativity, before a lot was the way it is now, we went to conferences and felt all those positive things in terms of felt like we were around like-minded people, and we felt like we were being built up and encouraged in our work, and felt like we were learning a lot of tangible things for ministries and for kids and for missions and all kinds of different things. But it wasn't Catholic, so there was a lot of blessing from that, but there was also a lot missing. And it, at the time, felt like a little bit of a hindrance because we'd watch their, openers for their services, and we'd be like, well, that's great, but we're working within a liturgy, and that is a little bit different. There's a little more opportunity, but there's a little bit more, kind of specific things we're going to adhere to, liturgically speaking. So we kind of had to take a lot of things and fit them into what we were doing. Whereas at, the Rebuilt Conference, everybody, I think, I don't know, most of the people who are attending are Catholic. And so we're all working in that same framework of the beauty and the, miraculous nature of the liturgy, which is a gift, but also we have a lot of things that are applicable, that would be applicable in any Christian church, but we can put them in the lens of a Catholic parish, which I think really sets Rebuilt apart in that way. Also, like I shared before, the actual story of doing it. It's not like this church was built this way. And it's not like it was built 2 years ago and saying, we're going to be this kind of church and we're going to have all these principles. And it wasn't founded that way. So to make that evolution and to really go on that journey and to see that and say, wow, this has happened in Timonium. I bet this could happen, in my part of the world or in my part of the country. And so we're living and breathing it. It's actually in a parish. It's not just in a, in a ballroom or in a hotel conference center talking about churches. You're actually in the space and you're saying, wow, this is what the cafe looks like. This is what the children's and student space is. And so there's something very relatable to that, to where you can say, these are some of the constraints we have, even still. But it's pretty cool to see that and to have that hands-on, I'm walking the space of an actual parish church and talking to people who actually work in a parish and can share with me the great parts and the hard parts of what they do.
That's absolutely true. Kristin, when you were talking about getting to actually see the space and be there, in our breakouts, they're going to actually be in some of those rooms. In our early experiences, they're going to actually get to be in the minister's suite. They're going to get to be in the kids' wing. They're going to get to see everything that Nativity does, and they get to learn from people actually doing this every single day. I think that's a great point.
Absolutely. And I think that the other side of it that maybe is overlooked sometimes is how much ministers and staff from Nativity learn, right?
Yes.
That, our space is not perfect. There's lots of challenges to what we have, even though, someone might come from, a space that looks very different from ours. They might come and say, wow, I can't imagine having all this space, and I can't imagine, but a lot of times we feel constrained by space. And so, or we feel like the space isn't really working for us. So, it's also incredible to hear what other churches are doing, because we are far from perfect and other churches have incredible ideas to share too. So it's not just Nativity pouring out what they have learned and what we have learned and things. That's definitely a big part of it. But a lot of it is that networking factor of saying, hey, you have something to offer too. You have wisdom and you have things you've learned and you have insight and ideas that we can learn from too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Kristin, for this next one, I'm excited to hear what you're going to share. And what I'm hoping to hear are your top 5 tips for getting the most out of the conference. Can you walk us through those and just tell us why they matter?
Of course. I think that the first thing, my first tip would be to spend some time in prayer, specifically for your conference time. I think that sometimes we go into things, or at least I do, you go into things and you just don't spend a lot of intentionality asking the Lord what he wants to show you through that time. It takes a little bit of slowing down. It takes a little bit of pausing. But there's something really beautiful in that, because you're just letting God know that you are opening yourself up to what he wants to share with you, rather than just what you see or what you hear. But there's probably more that he wants to share with you beyond just what is tangibly in front of you. So praying before you go is definitely my number one tip, because I think that just gives permission for God to speak to you in a new way during this conference. My
I
second
love
tip,
that.
my second tip would be just to be open-minded. Like anything with a trip or a conference, especially because there's money and there's resources and there's time invested in it. We have certain expectations that we bring to the table, which are good, which are normal. But with a conference like this, kind of what I shared before, God might be wanting to show you something that really is different than what you thought. So keeping an open heart is really important, because I think that it just allows you to let go of expectations of what you think you should be walking away with, or what you think you should be caring about, but rather just opens you up to listening for something new, and maybe it will be different than what you thought. Number 3, I'm trying to put them in an order in my head so that I can make sure, like, in priority, but it may be out of order, which is totally fine.
All good.
Number 3 would be ask questions. I think that sometimes speakers and breakout sessions and anything, people giving tours, anything like that, are trying to give the most information that they possibly can. But I can guarantee you that every one of them would love questions, because these breakout sessions are for you, right? Not even just to listen, but also to share. So if there's something that can be said or can be answered that would be really helpful to you, everybody's on board with that. You are not annoying anybody with your questions, no matter how silly they may feel to you. There is never a bad question or a dumb question. So I would say ask the questions, especially to the ministers, because I think sometimes people wait to ask, the director of this or the, head of this, but the ministers know a ton of information and are really a valuable resource. So I would say number 3 is ask the questions. Number 4 is have fun. I think that there might be a little bit of pressure to want to come back to your parish with a game plan and with a, like 5-year journey all mapped out, all intricately. But I think the more you can kind of relax and have fun, the more you'll be able just to absorb and to open your heart and mind up. Like I was saying with tip number 2, open your heart and mind up to really just enjoying yourself and recognizing that this is supposed to be a blessing. It's supposed to be rejuvenating to you. It's not supposed to be stressful. It's not supposed to make you go home and feel already like you're 10 steps behind. It's supposed to be something to breathe life back into your ministry and to really support you in the work that you're doing. That is so, so, so important. And I would say, my number 1 tip, which kind of goes with the rest of them, is the best you can is to be present. Being present can be really hard, especially with things like our phones or our laptops and things like that. Definitely take notes. That's really awesome. And a great thing to do, especially if your memory is like mine and you tend to promptly forget everything you just heard. So notes can be helpful, but I honestly would encourage you to bring like a notebook, bring a notebook with you, because so many of us, myself included, are a little bit too attached to our phone. And sometimes that can help us not be present, or that can be a hindrance in that. And so I think the most present you can be, the better your experience will be, is to show up, to be where you are, not to be thinking of the next thing, not to be thinking of a conversation you need to have with, someone on your team or something like that, but really being present, physically, spiritually, mentally, all those things. And one way I would do that, I would say, put your phone away and just bring a good old fashioned notebook and just show up and just be, it's kind of like, this is the culmination of my tips, because it's like, because you prayed and you want to have fun and you want to be open-minded, and all the different things, and all of that just culminates in just being present and bringing your heart with what you're doing, and engage in the conversation.
Oh my gosh, those are so good, Kristin. And I want to speak into some of those a little bit. So first, I love that you opened with start with prayer before you get there. The good news is you can continue the prayer once you're already there. We will have mass every day. So don't worry. We've got mass. We've also got adoration. We've got rosary time. So you can continue that prayer journey, which is great.
That would be
Be
so
open.
great.
Yes. Have open minds and open hearts. Yes. That is how you will receive from the Holy Spirit. I love that when it comes to asking questions. So our ministers will all be in the same t-shirt. So you will always know who to ask a question to because it will be somebody in one of our shirts. And if that person doesn't know the answer, they know exactly who to find who can answer that question for you, which is great. And have fun. Yes. Oh my gosh. Kristin, we're doing wishes again this year, which I
Yes.
think just make it so much fun. I'm so excited to see these wishes coming true at the conference. I can't wait.
Wishes are some of my favorite because it just there's such a spectrum of creativity and kind of silliness. And it just kind of allows people to enter into the silly, fun nature of it all.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And then the one where it's be present. Yes, we all have parishes at home to get back to and to do work. We know that the to-do list is never ending in parish ministry. We get that. And we will have spaces where you can charge your phones and charge your laptops, but I'm 100% in agreement with Kristin. Be present. We're giving you a notebook, but feel free to bring one so that way you can capture even more notes. We'll give you a nice pen, I promise, where you can write all of those notes down. But yes, let yourself just be. And then when you get home, then you can look at all those notes and start formulating a plan, but don't stress. Like Kristin, I love that you said that because I've been to conferences and then come home and I'm like, I'm behind. I should have done all these things already. But
Right.
you have to make a plan from there. You can't just expect that you're going to have it all done before, your first week home.
Absolutely. And I think too is that, sometimes you just want to, I get it. You want to do everything all at once. And there's a timeline. There's, a lot to be done in between when you leave. But, I would say even maybe, in your notebook, that's awesome that they're getting one. In your notebook, you can write out one or two main takeaways, maybe you can star them and highlight them. And that way you don't feel overwhelmed with the amount of things you want to discuss and do. But maybe there's one or two first steps that you can walk away with. And I think that would be considered a really successful conference if you walk away with that.
Yes. So Kristin, those tips were amazing. But now I would love to ask for you, what do you hope attendees will take away from this conference, especially with this year's theme being Can You Imagine?
I love this theme because I am a big dreamer and I like to think big. And I always tell my students that I work with now, my teenagers, I say, anytime you're brainstorming, you need to think really, really, really big. And even if that is never possible, that would never, ever happen, from that idea can come fantastic ideas underneath of it. So I always use the example of let's rent a plane and write something in the sky, and things like that. Obviously that would in most cases never happen, but there's something about dreaming really, really big and imagining bigger than you ever have before. And I feel like God is doing something big in our church right now. And I think that imagining in big ways, and not underestimating what God can do is kind of a theme for all of us right now.
Yes.
Is, not putting ourselves in a box and not getting ourselves wrapped up in what we're not, but rather, as a church, believing in what we can be and where God's going to take us. And so I think if I had to narrow it down to something that I really want parishes to take away, I'm reminded of the scripture where it says God, your thoughts are higher than my thoughts, your ways are higher than my ways. And so I think what I want them to take away is that, God is going to take your dreams and your plans and, multiply them and,
Yes.
replicate them tenfold. And so I just hope that attendees leave feeling confident in that truth and confident that, God is faithful. God is the most faithful God he ever could be. And so, he is going to bless your ministry. If you are serving him and if you are coming before the Lord and just giving it all that you have and really trying to honor God with what you're doing, then he is going to bless you. And sometimes we just need to have confidence in that and recognize that, it is not about the space. It is not about the cool technology. It's not about, the like really neat logos and things and like the cool cafe. Like that's all tools that draw people closer to God. But at the very heart of it is just God's love for his church. And, God saying, I want to bless my church and I want to grow my church. And God is using the people in charge. He's using the leaders to grow and bless his church, just like he did with the apostles. So I feel like it's really timely that we're just hearing a lot in the readings these past couple weeks about just how God is growing the church through, just like he did through the Acts of the Apostles. And I believe that that is just what he's doing with you. So when you're coming to the conference, like, that is who you are. That all those messages are for you, that you are going to be, you are the hands and feet of Jesus, bringing other people, who don't know God, introducing them to a God who loves them. And that is, the greatest mission in the world, according to me.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think that's a great point, is that we have to trust God that he can do more than we can ever ask or imagine. And that's the beauty of it, is that he will do more than all we could ever ask or imagine. And it's just such a beautiful time to be a part of the Catholic Church right now. And you're right, he is blessing us abundantly and he is growing the church. I mean, what can you imagine, Kristin? Could you imagine an American Pope? Like I never even imagined that. And look at what God has done. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I really, I keep telling people, the more I talk about just, the structure of all that, it just reminds me and it just makes me think like, that's just such a God thing to do, right?
Yes.
I think our country is just in need of some love and some needs of some unity, and things like that. And I think that, this is a start to God doing something really big in the life of our church. And I think God is really going to use Pope Leo XIV in really big ways that I'm sure he'd never imagined.
Right.
And so to see, the impact and the leadership that he has now that was completely unexpected. That's a great example. Like that, no one was tracking on him to be Pope ever. I remember I was researching all these potential options and didn't even consider researching him at all. And so I'm sure most people were like that. And so I think that, God surprises us, but still, even in his surprises, he is always faithful and true, and his plan will always come to be. So our job is to kind of like jump on and hold on tight and stay committed and keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. And that will really guide our ministry.
Absolutely. Now, Kristin, let's talk a little bit about first-time attendees. So some of these people, probably a lot of them, have never stepped foot in Nativity, and they've read the books and they've listened to the podcast or been a part of the workshops, but they haven't stepped foot on campus yet. So what advice would you give to those first-time attendees who might feel overwhelmed, not just by the space, but by, there's 40 different breakouts. There's lots of opportunities to connect with people. There's the vendor showcase. There's just so many things. How could you help them to feel less overwhelmed? What advice would you give to them?
First, I would say that all of this, whether it be the showcase or the breakouts or the music or the fun thing, is supposed to be fun. Yes. And if it's not fun, don't do it. So if it stresses you out to go in the vendor showcase, maybe wait a little bit. Maybe don't do that right away. And so I would say just to be in tune with yourself, instead of feeling like the pressure, again, like I said, like the pressure to do everything and to take everything and things like that, I would really just take it one session at a time, right? So sometimes if it's overwhelming to you when you look at that conference schedule and it is just jam-packed and there's all these different things and all these different subjects and things like that, if that's overwhelming for you, close it up and look at it and say, where am I supposed to be next? Okay. In a main session, great. And just focus on that. And and recognize that all of this is designed for a positive experience. And so if any part of it is making you feel very overwhelmed, give yourself a minute, talk to someone sitting next to you or, talk to a minister or something like that. But just something to remind you that it has taken us a very long time to get to this point. And the fact that, and it's a really big blessing to be able to get to the point to share it with other churches. And long ago and not that long ago, everybody here was the one at the conference with the big eyes saying,
Right.
I can't even imagine what this would be like. So we have been there for sure, 100%. And so I remember that feeling of feeling overwhelmed. But then I just think if you just take it one little step at a time, like, okay, I'm going to this breakout. So for these next 45 minutes, I'm going to think about next gen ministry, and I'm just going to be present and be there and absorb, all the things, all the, wisdom God wants to share with me through that speaker. I feel like it would help the overwhelmed feeling to kind of just one thing at a time.
I love that, Kristin. One thing at a time, focused on where you're supposed to be, and then look at where you're going next. Don't worry about
mantra for life, really. Let's be serious.
I think my mom tells me that all the time. One thing at a time, one day at a time, one step at a time. You're absolutely right. That is life advice right there. Now, let's talk about those who have been to Nativity before, who have been to past conferences at Nativity. What should they do differently this time around to get even more out of the experience?
If you've been here before, first, keep in mind, we are always learning and we're always growing. So probably, it's been a while since we've been able to do this together and gather together. So there has been a lot of time in between to learn and grow and change things up. Things are not the same as they were at the last conference. So, there's more things that we've learned and more things and more people added and more roles created and more vision hopefully developed and things like that. And in the same way that, God has been working in your parish, God's been working here too, and, speaking to the leaders of this church in a different way. So there's always more wisdom to share because God is never done. And God is never done sharing wisdom and loving and growing his church. So, I would say, be open to the newness that God has for you, that it's not just all same old, that God is doing a new thing here and he wants to do a new thing in you as well. But also maybe, if you've been here before, are there ways for you to get a little deeper? Are there ways for you to kind of focus on something that, maybe target one area of your church and really like do a little bit of a deep dive, like seek out ministers, like we were sharing before, like seek out ministers and ask them, hey, can you show me this or take me to someone who's been a small group leader for this? Or I don't know, just a bunch of different things, because you can really do a lot. You can do a lot of your investigative work outside of the breakouts, right? And by talking to people and things. And then the last thing I'd say, if you've been here before, like look around you, like look at all the other people who are at the conference with you. What could you learn and what does God want to show you through them? Because it's not just about nativity and nativity being the paradigm that we all need to create. That is not like the reason, but rather we're all here learning and growing and really trying to build the church and build his kingdom. So I think it's a really wise investment of your time to talk to people outside of the team that you come with, and really learn. Like that is one of my favorite things to do, to say, what's working well for you? What's not working well for you? What have you learned? What ideas are you dreaming up? Because we're all on the same team, right? We're all worshiping the same God. We're all, trying to lead people to Jesus. So we're not copying. We're just all, it's a collaboration. And that's how we feel too, is that it's just one big giant collaboration of all the ideas and all of the, just the different gifts that people have that allow them to create and to lead in different ways.
I love that. Now, here's a question for you that's a little bit different. What role do you see the Rebuilt Conference playing in helping these parishes cast a bold vision for the future?
For some, I think that it will be just the, I don't want to say reassurance, but just the visual, right? Like if you're a visual person, sometimes you need to see that it's been done before, like that God's done it before and God will do it again, and he can do it again in many different ways, shapes and forms. So I feel like that is something that is just really important to remember, is that the vision, I think for some people, nativity will just be a visual representation of one example of what could be for God to really grow a church that was struggling to thriving. I also think that, nativity will almost give permission for people to dream big. One of the values that I've always appreciated about Nativity that I've realized I've really carried over into every single aspect of my life, including like my kids' birthday parties and like things like that, is just this value of excellence, right?
Yes.
I always, I remember being in staff meetings and just talking about how so much of what we attend and love in life, whether it be like Broadway shows or like concerts or, anytime there's a big gathering of people, we expect a certain level of excellence.
Yes.
And when it's not, we complain and we're like, wait a minute, I paid for this ticket and I don't understand. This was supposed to be amazing. And so we already kind of elevate these experiences to this level of excellence. But for some reason, when it came to the church, we were okay with like mediocre or sometimes downright bad or like, irrelevant and things like that. And so I always love that value of that excellence isn't being arrogant. It isn't being better than, it isn't saying that everything has to be perfect, but rather it's saying, hey, this is of so much value. Actually, like worshiping Jesus on the weekend, at Mass on Sunday or Saturday. And, the Eucharist is so powerful and this miracle that's taking place is so important. Why wouldn't we bring this level of excellence to this experience? Why wouldn't we, do all that we can to make the music incredible? Why wouldn't we have people who are gifted and, doing like camera work? Why wouldn't we make it so everyone can see what's happening and it's crisp and clear and visually interesting? And why wouldn't we, have messages that are relatable and relevant and really people can really follow week after week? That is not a bad thing. That's not, that's actually a really beautiful value and a really beautiful way to view the church is that, it's not about money and it's not having, the actual tangible things to make it excellent, but having the mindset of like, this should be great because this is the greatest thing we can do with our time. So why wouldn't we put effort into making this great? And so that mentality is really different. So I would love it if Nativity could be or could share that value, because I just don't honestly think that's shared shared enough or really at all. I think that if it is shared, it's looked at like, oh, well, you're expecting it to be perfect and it's like a show and things like that. It's not a show. It's literally, like I said, the best way you could possibly spend your time. It's a miracle that takes place on that altar every single week. So why wouldn't we honor that with all the gifts we possibly could and draw as many people as possible into that experience as we can?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Kristin, you're one of our MCs for this year's event. So I want to know, what are you most excited about? And what final encouragement would you like to offer the attendees as they prepare to join us?
Something I am most excited about, well, on a superficial level, I love the wishes. So I'll leave that over there. That's just like the wishes.
That's just fun.
I think on a deeper level, I love worshiping in song with as many people as possible. So I think that that time of worship that we'll share together, both in Mass and outside of Mass, I think will be really special. And I really do think God's going to do really incredible things in that time. So that is what I'm most excited about. Also talking to people, I love it. So if you're, listening to this and you see me at the Rebuilt conference, please come talk to me, because I love talking and sharing my experience for sure with growing up here and just how everything has evolved has been such a cool experience. My last advice, gosh, I feel like I've given so many tips already. I think, I think I just keep coming back to like, don't underestimate what God can do.
Yes.
Don't put, and don't let the like evil sounds a little bit dramatic, but like, don't let the evil of comparison creep into your experience, right? Like, you are your own church. God is doing incredible things through your church. We are, Nativity and your church is not the same, nor should they be. You are in a different, part of the world or the country or even our town. And so I think that, don't let comparison in. Just leave that at the door and then come in, just with who you are and just with your heart. And that will be the best experience you can have.
Oh my gosh, Kristin, that's such good feedback. Don't let comparison be the thief of your joy in this, because they're going to get to learn from not just Nativity, but from some of our partner parishes that have had some great success when they've applied the Rebuilt model in their own parishes. And it can be really easy to look up at people on stage thinking, oh my gosh, they are killing it. Why is my parish not killing it like they are? We're all in our own part of our journey. And you're absolutely right. Just remember what God can do. I love that, Kristin. Thank you.
Of course.
Well, Kristin, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to see you very soon at the Rebuilt Conference.
Can't wait.
Thank you for all of our listeners. For those of you coming, we will see you in just a few days. Till next time.